Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of True Crime and Chill. I am your host, Gabby. And again, I am joined by Haley. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. I woke up to my 6-month-old puppy having chewed up my favorite heels. So,
Oh my
um,
God. How
yeah.
expensive were the shoes?
So they weren't super expensive because I bought them at Ross, but they're the Nine
Oh my
West
gosh.
brand, and I can't find them anywhere. I found them on Amazon, but they are sold out in like almost every single size. So I did some retail therapy, but obviously I couldn't get those exact heels, so I'm still mad.
Oh my gosh. I would be so pissed off.
I'm
I
mostly
mean,
mad because this is the third pair. So she chewed up 2 pairs of flip-flops of mine and these heels, but my husband leaves his shoes everywhere and she hasn't touched his. Not once.
of course.
I'm like, why?
So, if you guys are thinking about getting a puppy, keep that in.
She also
in
ate our kitchen floor, so good luck.
Yeah, you sent me a picture of that. So again, if you want a puppy that bad, yes, they're cute, but you have to think that you're going to be paying for more than just the puppy and the vet expenses.
Uh-huh. It's a lot of
A few of my fiance and I's friends have gotten new puppies, just like a lot of people have gotten puppies over the quarantine,
yeah.
which is awesome. I absolutely love it. But I've actually heard some stories very similar to what yours is. I don't think any of our friends' dogs have chewed up the kitchen floor, but they've chewed up
No.
shoes and other stuff. So I mean,
That might
that's
be a Great Dane thing. You know, she's a 6-month-old puppy. She's also like 80 pounds. So,
oh my gosh.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So, you're training her and she doesn't know how big she is. You forget how young she is. You think she should know these things already, but she's only 6 months. Like, we still have a long way to go.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, my dogs are a lot older. My little Yorkie, she's 12. I mean, she doesn't do anything wrong. But my two big German Shepherds, they can be a pain in the ass. My fiance, who will probably listen to this episode, knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Shepherds are they're babies at heart, no matter how old they are.
Yes. But I love my dogs. I think it's just like conditioning us for when we have children, because it's like raising 3 kids.
I have like this, my phone case has my dogs and then my cat that passed away in January. And then I have this little like dog mom pop socket that goes on it. So I'm up.
Cute.
I love having animals. They just sometimes make you want to give them away.
Yeah.
Like this morning.
Yeah.
But how are you? I mean, obviously my day was crazy, but
I'm good. I mean, I've been keeping myself pretty busy. Probably after we're done recording, I'm thinking about giving my dog a haircut.
Nice.
My little Yorkie, not my 2 German Shepherds. I'm not going to attempt that.
No.
My Yorkie is very tolerant, so I can give her a haircut without having to take her to the groomer. Thank God. I'm not going to attempt to give my 2 big dogs a bath or a haircut unless I want my face ripped off.
Exactly.
But other than that, the only big news that I experienced in the week was our gym in Michigan. Our gym opened up on Thursday, and then Friday morning, they closed down until further notice. So
it's crazy. Like, we're getting to like almost 100% capacity at like restaurants and stuff here because the capacity was going up each week. And now bars were completely shut down again and restaurants have to go to 50% capacity by Monday. And I assume in like a week or 2 we'll be shut down all the way again.
I think Michigan is on their way to another shutdown. I don't know, but I mean, the gyms are not allowed to be open. That's as far as I know. Restaurants, you can still go in to like 20 to 50% capacity. I could be wrong by the time this episode is uploaded. But for now, we are not on a full lockdown like some other states, like Texas, Florida. They're heading towards. I hope that it doesn't happen because we have plans for 4th of July.
I know. Well, all of the stuff around here already got canceled, like events for July 4th. My husband, who's a police officer, has worked every July 4th for like 7 years. This is the first one he doesn't have to work. So it kind of like a little bit of a blessing, I guess,
Yeah.
finally has the holiday off. But I need Florida to get its shit together because I would like to visit my grandparents. And I can't if they can't like get a hold on this and reopen without having issues. So, or, I mean,
Mitch, if you're listening, if Mitch is listening, tell your people to get their shit together. Brian, tell your people to get their shit together.
I just want to visit my grandparents. That's it.
Yeah, my father-in-law lives in Florida, and it would either be really nice to visit him or for him to come up to see us. Either way, Florida, get it together. Texas, get it together. Everyone else, just get it together.
Please. Well, you got to see your dad recently, right? For Father's
Yeah.
Day?
Yeah, we went to Chicago. My dad was super pumped. It was the first time I saw him since Christmas.
That's crazy.
So it was about 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad said he was looking forward to it all week when I told him that we were planning on going.
So cute.
Yeah. And I got him this like little laser wood crafted I don't know what to call it, but it's like something you hang up on your wall.
Mm-hmm.
And it was laser cut with the United States Air Force logo because he was in the Air Force for quite a while. So I thought that was something perfect for him because he's like one of those people, one of those dads where he has everything. It's impossible to shop for him because if he doesn't have it and he doesn't want to wait for a holiday or his birthday, he's just going to buy it himself. So I always have to like think one step ahead.
I always tell my husband before Christmas, like, do not buy movies, do not buy any like video games or anything like so many months out from Christmas because people may be buying those for you. And I'm just thankful that my parents have an Amazon wish list. It makes birthdays and holidays and stuff like that so much easier. Just go on there, pick one thing, and done.
I wish my dad had an Amazon wish list, but again, he'd buy it for himself.
That's true. I kind of use my wish list like that. Like I put stuff on there that I want, but sometimes I'll go buy it for myself, like if I don't want to wait. So it's more of like a shopping list and then hopeful other people might buy some of it.
Well, that's what dads are for. And that's Amazon is just too addictive to not buy things for yourself.
Especially during COVID.
Yes. All right. So before we get into our series finale of the killing season, I just want to remind you guys, I just learned this. Apparently HBO is showing a documentary on the Golden State Killer, which we covered in our previous episode. So today is June 28th. It'll be airing tonight on HBO. For those who haven't seen it or are looking for some new true crime documentary to watch, if you don't remember or you haven't listened to the last episode where we covered the Golden State Killer, very fascinating serial killer for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to give anything away, but we wanted to cover him on our Unsolved serial killers episode, but we can't because we know who he is now. And also talking about serial killers, what I learned earlier in the week, former NFL quarterback Jay Cutler is in the middle of a little crisis as he has someone or something murdering his chickens on his property and he doesn't know who or what it is. If you go on his Instagram page, I think it's at If Jay Has Instagram, he's in like full-blown night vision goggles, sitting on his property, his kids' treehouse, scoping out his property to find out who is killing his chickens.
It's great. It's just great.
It's very comical if you look up the videos on Twitter or maybe YouTube or something. It's very comical. He also has pictures on his timeline showing all these different things that he's trying to do to find out who is killing his chickens. And if you can help him figure out who's killing his chickens, I think he's going to send you a $1,000 gift card.
I might have to go on there and try to figure this out for him.
Yes. So if you want to help Jay Cutler,
I feel like this could be solved with some cameras, though, to be honest. Like,
he has cameras, but I guess they weren't working, or
they were turned off or something. Of course, they weren't working. So we had a major crime a few years ago in Leander, and the entire hour or however long the crime took place, there's a spider on the neighbor's camera the entire time, or a moth.
Yeah.
I think it was a moth, literally blocking the entire view of that house. And you're like, of course, because why else would the moth be there other than to block the police from seeing what happened?
It's an accessory to murder.
Exactly. Go arrest that moth. That's what I feel like. Cameras just don't work when they're supposed to. Poor Jake.
Yeah, I know. So by the time this episode is uploaded, I hope he finds out who has murdered his chickens.
But hey, Jay, you can come on True Crime and chill and tell us all about it, and maybe we can help you solve it.
Yes, we know a lot more than people believe.
Yes.
All right, so let's get into our serial killers for today. I mean, it was a very interesting cast that we're going to be discussing. We're going to start off with Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, not the original Night Stalker, who was also known as the Golden State Killer. And if you remember from the last episode, the Golden State Killer used to be referred to as the Night Stalker until Richard Ramirez came into the picture, and then they changed his name to the original Night Stalker. So there's two Night Stalkers, but we're going to talk about the non-original, the
remix.
The remix Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez, who is just as weird. If you look at his mugshots, very creepy dude. His story is very fascinating. So, like always, we're going to start from the beginning, just as a little background reference for people who have no idea who Richard Ramirez is. He's a serial killer who murdered at least 14 people and raped and tortured at least 24 more. So he was born on February 29th, 1960 in El Paso, Texas. So he's a leap year baby.
Wow.
Yeah.
In Texas, too. Huh.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not really super surprising to me that he was born in El Paso, though, because they have a very high crime rate, violent crime rate down there.
Okay. I did not know that.
Yeah, I was there for my bloodstain analysis class for work. Mm-hmm. And I obviously rode with the people who are from there to go to lunch because I was like, I don't know where I'm going. Take me to all the good places. And they were like, oh, there's a murder over there. And we had a murder over there. And I was like, oh, my God, where am I? But my brother and his family live there, and there are some really nice parts as well.
All right. So Richard's father was often physically abusive, so Richard saw comfort in his older cousin, Miguel. Miguel was a decorated Green Beret. Miguel would boast about his gruesome exploits during the Vietnam War. Richard's cousin shared Polaroid photos of his victims, such as Vietnamese women he raped. In some of the photos that Miguel shared, they showed them posing with the severed head of a woman he had abused.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's super messed up, and his friendship with his cousin Miguel, or I should say relationship with his cousin Miguel, plays in a huge part of why Richard was the way he was. So So Richard began smoking pot at the age of 10 and bonded with his cousin Miguel over smoking joints and discussing war stories. Miguel taught Richard some military skills such as killing with stealth. Around this time, Richard began to find a way to escape from his father by sleeping in a local cemetery.
No. I don't care what's going on. I'm not sleeping in a cemetery.
No.
No. That's creepy.
I mean, I know it sounds weird, but I've wanted to tour a haunted cemetery. I know in some way all cemeteries are haunted because of the thousands of dead people there, but
Sure.
I've heard that some cemeteries are more haunted than others, and I've always wanted to tour one, not sleep in one, but to see what kind of paranormal activity you can find there.
Yeah, I don't think I'm ever going to sleep in a cemetery. Well, until I'm dead. But even then, I don't think I want to be buried. I think cremation is, I don't know if I just want to be dead in the ground. And I mean, obviously I wouldn't know what was going on, but still, I don't know. It's weird to me.
Yeah. On May 4th, 1973, Richard saw his cousin Miguel shoot and kill his wife Jessie in the face during a violent argument. Afterwards, Richard became withdrawn from his family and friends. Later that year, he moved in with his sister Ruth and her husband Roberto. Roberto was an obsessive peeping Tom who would take Richard on his nocturnal exploits. Despite being diagnosed with epilepsy, Richard began to use LSD and find an interest in Satanism at this time.
Wow.
Yeah.
You can tell where all this, I don't know, where all this craziness is coming from just by this stuff.
Yeah. So during his adolescence, Richard began to meld his sexual fantasies with violence that included forced bondage and rape. While in school, he worked at a local Holiday Inn where he would use pass keys to rob sleeping guests. He was fired after a guest returned to his room to find Richard attempting to rape his wife. Although the husband beat Ramirez senseless, criminal charges were dropped when the couple declined to testify against him.
Wow.
Now, can you imagine, you are on vacation and you're at a hotel, maybe you, go downstairs to get your complimentary breakfast, and you come back upstairs to your room to find someone raping your significant other?
It's insane. I don't know. I'm the type of person, I stayed at a hotel with my brother in Pennsylvania, and he'd leave the room and I would deadbolt it, and, he would a specific knock to get back in, because I guess my job and stuff makes me a little bit more wary of people. But yeah, I just can't imagine. That's crazy. If he was working there, I assume he had keys to get in. Mm-hmm. So the only thing that would stop him would be the deadbolt lock.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I can't even imagine how horrifying that would be. I mean, it's just scary enough that you would find somebody in your room, but then they're trying to rape your significant other. I would be terrified.
But why not press charges? Are you just afraid, or what? I don't know what went through their mind, because to me, I'm you need to lock him away and then look what happens when you don't,
I mean, it could be a re-victimization, which a lot of rape victims do experience if they go to trial with the man or the person
the Stanford
that raped
one.
them.
Yeah. And then he got 6 months and only spent 4 months in jail when he was caught in the act. She put out a book from her experiences during it, and it's really good. It's a really good read.
I haven't read it. I wanted to read it last year when it came out, but I totally forgot.
I have to send it to you because it's on my Kindle, so I can share it with you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. It's good.
All right. Sorry about the little tangent.
Let's move on. Sorry.
Ramirez dropped out of high school in 9th grade and moved to California at the age of 22. On April 10th, 1984, Ramirez killed 9-year-old Mei Lung in the basement of the hotel where he was living. He raped and beat her before stabbing her to death, then hung her body from a pipe. Although it was not initially identified as being connected to the subsequent crime spree, this was Ramirez's first known killing. On June 28, 1984, Richard Ramirez murdered 79-year-old Jenny Vincow, who was sexually assaulted, stabbed, and killed during a burglary in her home. Investigators say that her throat was slashed so deeply that she was nearly decapitated. Ramirez's fingerprint was found on a mesh screen which he removed to gain access through an open window.
Dang.
Very lazy.
Yeah, for not wearing gloves for sure, but I applaud those crime scene people for getting that fingerprint, because difficult surfaces that take different techniques and stuff.
Mm-hmm. All right. So on March 17th, 1985, Ramirez attacked 22-year-old Maria Hernandez outside her home and shot her in the face with a .22 caliber handgun after she pulled into her garage. She survived when the bullet ricocheted off the keys she held in her hands as she lifted them to protect herself.
Wow.
Ramirez shot and killed her roommate, Dale Okazaki, after she had an encounter with Richard in the kitchen. What are the odds?
Like, somebody was looking out for you, because for you to lift your keys in the right exact position that bullet is coming, that's insane.
Perfect timing, the exact position. Wow. Like, when I did my research on it and I read that, I was like, holy shit.
That's crazy. Like,
you got within probably like centimeters of being murdered.
Yes. That's,
wow.
I mean, I just had a scene recently where a bullet came through a windshield, and I mean, I didn't hit the person, but it wasn't that far off. So it's kind of like that, like where it's just, it wasn't your time to go. You know, somebody was looking out for you, because it almost should have killed you, and it didn't.
Yeah, oh my gosh, that's nuts. So within an hour of this invasion, Ramirez pulled 30-year-old Veronica Yu out of her car, shot her twice with a .22 caliber handgun, and fled. Local news dubbed Ramirez the walk-in killer and the Valley Intruder. 10 days later, on March 27th, Ramirez killed 64-year-old Vincent Zazara and his wife, Maxine. After killing the husband in his sleep, Ramirez beat the wife and bound her hands. Maxine escaped and found a gun that was not loaded, which Ramirez became furious and shot her 3 times with a .22 caliber gun. Then Ramirez found a large carving knife, which he mutilated her body by stabbing her several times. Then gouged her eyes out and placed them in a jewelry box, which he left with. Ramirez left footprints from a pair of Avia sneakers in the flower beds. Police found bullets at the scene that matched bullets from previous scenes, which helped them realize that there was a serial killer on the loose.
And he just got like more and more angry, you know, as the killings, you know, starting without a gun and then going to a gun, and then this poor lady, like, he was pissed. But okay, first off, you're gonna have the firearm, have it loaded, so that you could have saved, you know, try to save yourself a little bit. That's really sad.
Yeah. So after relentless media and police pressure, aided with descriptions provided by surviving victims, Ramirez left LA and moved to San Francisco, where he eventually killed Peter and Barbara Pan on August 17th. Shortly thereafter, the media began to refer to Ramirez as the Night Stalker, as most of his assaults took place at night in victims' homes. On August 31st, 1985, Ramirez was arrested after he was badly beaten by East LA residents while attempting 2 carjackings. At his first court appearance, Ramirez raised a hand with a pentagram drawn on it and yelled, "Hail Satan."
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
On August 3rd, 1988, LA Times reported that some jail employees overheard Ramirez plan to shoot the prosecutor with a gun, which Ramirez had intended to have smuggled into the courtroom. Consequently, a metal detector was installed outside, and intensive searches were conducted on people entering. Now, I don't know if you would know the answer to this, but do most, if not all, courtrooms have metal detectors in them now?
Most, they should, for everybody's protection, not just the people like, in the jury or the judge or stuff, but even the witnesses, especially because, you're not just worried about suspects, you're worried about maybe angry family members who want justice. And if they don't get it in the courtroom, they're going to try to get it a different way. You've seen the videos of like the parents jumping over, and I mean, do you blame them really? But, all the ones that I've been to do have metal detectors at like the front door at least. I don't know if they have them like where the suspects are, but I would assume they're searched before they're brought in.
Yeah, probably. All right. So on August 14th, the trial was interrupted because one of the jurors was found shot to death by her boyfriend.
Wow.
Like,
what are the odds of that,
Yeah. Some people thought that Richard had planned for this to happen, or they thought he was connected to it in some way, but they found out that it was the boyfriend who did it, and Richard was not connected to it in any way.
Yeah. Just like his dumb luck, but bad for her, obviously.
Yeah. On September 20th, 1989, Richard was convicted on all charges. 13 counts of murder, 5 attempted murders, 11 sexual assaults, and 14 burglaries. On November 7th, 1989, Ramirez was sentenced to die in California's gas chamber. He stated to reporters after the sentence, "Big deal. Death always went with the territory. See you in Disneyland."
Wow. Just no remorse. Not a care in the world.
It sounds very sociopathic to me.
I mean, almost don't kill him and lock him up for life, because death seems like a good option for him. And so he doesn't really deserve to have that peace.
No. Yeah, I mean, it seems like that's kind of what he wants, or that's what he wants you to think.
Right.
That's his preferred punishment. Yeah, and it would almost be more fitting if you just let him rot in his jail cell for the rest of his life.
Yeah. Exactly. Especially because once people found out his first victim was really, really young, like, other prisoners aren't going to have that.
No. So, and we've mentioned this several times throughout the True Crime and Chill existence, the trial cost $1.8 million approximately. So this $1.8 million was in the 80s. So
wow. The
economy was different back then compared to now in like the late 2010s, 2020. So this would be approximately $3.71 million in 2019.
Wow.
And I remember from like criminal justice classes, if you have a more famous case, even if it's like a regular lesser known person, if they have the media coverage and if their trial is covered heavily by the media, it just makes it more expensive.
Yeah.
So at this time, it was the most expensive trial in California history until it was surpassed by, can you guess which trial?
Golden State?
No.
No? Oh, man. Which one?
The O.J. Simpson murder trial.
Duh. Totally forgot. I don't know why when I think of him, I think Florida, and I just forget all the time that it was California.
I mean, O.J.'s trial seems very much like a Florida thing.
It does, right? Because they obviously let murderers go a lot, so.
But California has just as many crazy people if not more crazy people, because it's a larger state than Florida. But yeah, I could definitely see why the O.J. Simpson murder trial was expensive, and
Yes.
I was actually surprised that Richard Ramirez's trial was so expensive, and it was that expensive for like 5 years.
I bet because like that juror died and all that stuff, like things just kind of made it go for longer than it should have.
Mm-hmm.
And then any appeals, I don't know if they count that in the total cost, but that stuff can get pricey.
Yeah. So a little background information on Richard Ramirez's psychological disorders and all of that. So Ramirez scored a 31 out of 40 on Hare's psychopathy checklist, which makes him a primary psychopath.
Huh.
Yes. Makes sense.
Could have guessed that, but
Antisocial personality disorder is the dominant disorder in Ramirez's case, and due to his crimes, he may have had antisocial personality disorder mixed with sadism and schizoid traits. He may have suffered from schizophrenia as well, which was likely worsened by using drugs. I have also heard that. I've heard if you have some sort of mental illness and you abuse psychedelic or hallucinogenic drugs, it almost like accentuates those symptoms because it kind of like chemically alters your brain function in a way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was like, Hail Satan and all that stuff, so.
Yeah.
And then his crazy, cousin in the beginning?
Yeah. His crazy cousin and his brother-in-law with the peeping Tom thing.
Mm. And then he was abused by dad, right? So.
Yeah.
Just like all the males in his family were either crazy or like an abuser, still crazy, I guess.
So on June 7th, 2013, Ramirez died of complications secondary to B-cell lymphoma. He had also been affected by chronic substance abuse and chronic hepatitis C viral infection. He was on death row for more than 23 years.
Wow. That's a long time.
I did not remember when that he died until I saw that he died.
Me either. I don't know. Like, I obviously probably knew about it, but I don't know. I guess I haven't done too much research on him. As we saw, if you listen to the last episode, most of mine was done on the Green River Killer. So I didn't know as much, but yeah, I didn't remember.
So let's move on to the next serial killer. Now, for anybody who's seen Mindhunter, he was in, I think it was the second season, or maybe it was the first season, when they were interviewing this serial killer, and he had made some complaints to the FBI about the way that they spoke to him, the way that they interviewed him. And again, the show did a great job depicting the serial killer and the type of mannerisms that he had while in prison. I'm talking about Richard Speck. So if for anybody who has or hasn't seen Mindhunter, he's in like 2 or 3 episodes briefly. And while they're interviewing him, he had like this bird that he was holding in his hands and while he was being interviewed by the FBI. And I didn't know that was true. I didn't even know that prisons would allow murderers or people in prison to have like some sort of pet.
I know they don't now. I don't remember what show I was watching, but this prisoner had like a pet lizard and he was trying to hide it from them, so he wasn't even allowed to have that. And that's recent.
Yeah, and this was like back in the 70s, so
Right.
This was a long time ago. But the show depicted him holding this bird the whole time, and that was true. I did not think that was a fact, but that was in fact true. So Richard Speck was a mass murderer who systematically raped, won, and tortured and murdered 8 student nurses. So Richard Speck was born on December 6, 1941 in Kirkwood, Illinois, another Sagittarius. As we have talked about briefly in a previous episode, Sagittariuses are very common among serial killers. I don't know why.
I don't know. My husband's a Sagittarius, though. Gotta keep my eyes open.
So, in 1947, Richard's father died of a heart attack. A few years later, Richard's religious teetotaler mother moved to the Dallas area where she married a traveling insurance salesman. Richard's stepfather was an alcoholic with a 25-year criminal record that started with forgery and included several arrests for drunk driving. Richard said that his stepfather was abusive as he often psychologically abused Speck with insults and threats. And I thought this was very interesting considering who his mother was, and for people who don't know who teetotalers are, they're the type of people who abstain from drinking alcohol. They don't like alcohol. They don't believe in drinking alcohol or people should be drinking alcohol. So I found it incredibly interesting that she would marry a man who was an alcoholic.
Yeah. I don't know. Sometimes it's like you find your complete opposite, though.
Yeah.
It might be that.
Maybe. I don't know. And he sounded like a pretty piece of shit guy to begin with.
Maybe he hid it from her at first, and then all of a sudden was a totally new person.
Maybe. So Richard was a poor student who needed reading glasses but refused to use them. Speck struggled in school from the 4th grade through 8th grade as he had to repeat the 8th grade, large in part because he refused to speak in class because of the lifelong fear of people staring at him. In fall of 1957, Speck started 9th grade but failed every subject and did not return for the 2nd semester in January 1958. He dropped out shortly after his 16th birthday. At the age of 12, Speck began drinking, and by 15, he was getting drunk almost every day. His first arrest was at the age of 13 for trespassing. Over the next 8 years, Speck was arrested dozens of times for other misdemeanor crimes. So he has a long rap sheet just by starting at as early as 13, which is so sad.
Yeah, it's young.
In July of 1963, Speck was caught after he forged and cashed a coworker's $44 paycheck. Also, he robbed a grocery store, stealing cigarettes, beer, and $3 in cash. The 21-year-old Speck was convicted of forgery and burglary and sentenced to 3 years in prison. However, he was paroled after serving 16 months from 1963 to 1965. 1 week after he was paroled on January 9, 1965, Speck was wielding a 17-inch carving knife when he attacked a woman in the parking lot of her apartment. He fled once the woman screamed. Speck was convicted of aggravated assault, given a 16-month sentence to run concurrently with a parole violation sentence, and returned to prison. Due to an error, Speck was released just 6 months later on a completion of his parole violation sentence on July 2nd, 1965. They really missed the mark on that one.
Yeah, just a little bit. He's a dangerous guy, and
yes. I mean, his rap sheet just continues to grow into a longer laundry list of items, and he was only 21.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I mean, starting at 13.
Yeah. So it's like, 8 years of him committing numerous crimes? That's nuts.
And just seemed to be getting worse, too.
Yeah. After his release from prison, Speck worked for 3 months as a driver for the Patterson Meat Company and had 6 accidents with his truck before he was fired for failing to show up for work. How do you fire him after 6 accidents?
Yeah. I feel like 6 is kind of a high number for that type of thing. Like maybe a little bit sooner.
I know this was in the 60s, but I know some jobs that require you to drive, like truck drivers, like those long distance truck drivers, they have so many stipulations that you have to follow, or if you don't, you get fired or you get fined or something. Like, you have to have a very low blood alcohol level.
Right.
It's lower than your standard 0.08.
Yes.
So they have to have at least 1 beer in their system or less before they can legally go out to drive. So I don't know how this company allowed him to get away with 6 accidents before they're just like, you know what?
That's a lot. Like, I don't know. I feel like after 1 and 2, at that point, you should probably reevaluate.
Yeah.
I mean, depending on how bad the first one was.
And the stupid thing is they fired him for failing up to show up for work. It wasn't the accidents that got him fired. It was his lack of showing up for his shift, and that's what broke the straw on the camel's back.
You can have as many accidents as you want, but don't be late to work or not show up. That's it. Like, what? No. Like, obviously not showing up for work is a reason to fire people, because that just shows you're unreliable and that you don't care. But I mean, there are other issues. That's not the only thing.
Their insurance rates must have been astronomically high.
Right? Like, you get it 1 and it goes up. You're talking like this is 1 employee having 6.
I don't even know how they have insurance. I know a lot of insurance companies, after you file your 3rd claim, they don't want to keep you.
Exactly.
That's nuts. In December 1965, Speck moved in with a 29-year-old divorced woman, an ex-professional wrestler who was a bartender at his favorite bar, Ginny's Lounge, and needed someone to babysit her 3 children. Again, what the hell?
Yeah. What?
Did she not know who he was, or was he putting on a facade? And she's like, yeah, go babysit my 3 kids. You seem like a fine young gentleman.
I mean, I know this was a long time ago, but did we not make sure he wasn't a crazy person or didn't have violent past or something?
Yeah.
So your children, it's your responsibility to make sure this person is not going to kidnap or murder them.
Mm-hmm.
Or hurt them in another way.
What a dumb bitch. In January 1966, Speck stabbed a man in a knife fight at Ginny's Lounge. He was charged with aggravated assault, but the charge was reduced to disturbing the peace. Speck was fined $10 and jailed for 3 days after he failed to pay the fine. Now, I know this was in the 60s, and fines are greatly different back then versus today, but $10 just seems like such a ridiculous amount.
$10, you're basically saying what you did is no big deal. It's fine.
Yeah.
Just pay $10, and he couldn't even do that. Dude, all you do is pay $10 to avoid jail. What is going on? My gosh.
On May 5th, 1966, Speck bought a car. The following evening, he robbed a grocery store where he stole 70 cartons of cigarettes, and he sold them out of the trunk of his car in the grocery store's parking lot. Then he abandoned the car. So he bought the car, went to a grocery store that same evening, and then committed a crime, and then abandoned said car that he just bought.
But you're still linked to that car.
Yeah.
You purchased it. You're the purchaser. They're going to figure that out. That's really stupid.
You have money to buy a car, but you can't pay a $10 fine?
I want to know how much he paid for that car. And then he was okay with just like throwing it away. So
was it $9?
And maybe it was only $5. Maybe it was a piece of crap that got him just to the grocery store. It didn't work after that.
The police traced the car to Speck, obviously, and issued a warrant for his arrest for burglary on March 8th. On March 9th, 1966, Speck's sister drove him to a Dallas bus stop where he took a bus to Chicago, Illinois, to avoid his 42nd arrest in just Dallas alone.
Jesus. Texas.
Do you guys in Texas know a lot about Richard Speck, considering that he's been arrested 41 times?
I didn't before this, like before Mindhunter. I didn't know anything about him. And then doing some research for this, but dang, that's a lot. Like, I've seen people, as a dispatcher, you run criminal histories for officers. And so you see people with books, they've been arrested quite a bit. But I don't know if I've seen 42 times just in one city alone. That's a lot.
Yeah. And with him committing his murders in Chicago, I didn't know anything about him before Mindhunter, which is nuts.
Yeah, I feel like he's not a super... I mean, he didn't really have a nickname, right? It was just...
No.
So I wonder if, like, he just wasn't portrayed in the media as much as some of these other people, because I feel like the media always gave nicknames and all that. And maybe because he was stupid, he was getting caught a lot, that they didn't care.
Probably. It's like, we're so done covering this guy on the news. Just, let's talk about literally anything else.
Right. 42 times. That's it. That's enough.
Richard Speck got arrested again. Oh, big shock.
Exactly.
After spending some time in Chicago, Speck moved back to his hometown of Monmouth, Illinois. So Chicago is very close to Indiana, well, relatively close to Indiana. And where he lived, where he was born, is on the exact opposite side of Illinois, so it's closer to Iowa.
Oh.
Yeah. So for people who weren't sure where Monmouth, Illinois is, or Kirkwood, Illinois is, totally opposite side of Illinois. It's near Iowa. On April 3rd, Mrs. Virgil Harris, a 65-year-old resident, returned home at 1:00 a.m. to find a burglar in her home brandishing a knife. Despite saying she thought the man to be, quote-unquote, very nice and spoke, quote-unquote, very softly with a southern drawl, Virgil was blindfolded, tied up, and raped by this man, where he then ransacked her house and stole the $2.50 she had earned from babysitting that evening.
Wow.
A week later, Mary Catherine Peace, a 32-year-old barmaid who worked at a tavern called Frank's Place, was reported missing. Her body found that day in an empty hog house behind the tavern, where she had died from a blow to her abdomen that ruptured her liver.
Ouch.
Speck had frequented Frank's Place, and the empty hog house was one of several he had helped build in the preceding months, so he was briefly questioned about his involvement. When police showed up at the hotel Speck was staying at to continue questioning him, police had noticed that Speck had left the hotel a few hours earlier. A search of his room helped police discover a radio and costume jewelry that Mrs. Virgil Harris had reported missing. Shortly after returning to Chicago, Speck's brother-in-law helped Speck find a job with the Coast Guard as an apprentice seaman. Shortly after working as a freighter, Speck was stricken with appendicitis and evacuated to St. Joseph's Hospital in Hancock, Michigan. And for any of my Michiganders, if you know about him, good for you. I did not know about him. Haley did not know about him.
He's been in all of our areas,
yeah.
like Texas, Chicago, Michigan. What the heck?
After he was discharged from the hospital, Speck returned to Chicago, where he stayed with his sister. He returned to work as a freighter, where he served until June 14th, when he got drunk and quarreled with one of the boat's officers and was put ashore on June 15th. At 11 p.m. on July 13th, 1966, Speck broke into 2319 East 100th Street townhouse in Chicago's Jeffrey Manor neighborhood. The townhouse was functioning as a dormitory for student nurses. He entered and, only using a knife, killed 7 women. Speck claimed that he was drunk and high on drugs, may have originally planned to commit a routine burglary. Speck held the women in a room for hours, leading them out one by one, stabbing or strangling each to death, then finally raping and strangling his last victim. One woman, Corazon Amurao, escaped death because she crawled and hid under a bed while Speck was out of the room. Amurao stayed hidden until almost 6 a.m.
Oh my
Fingerprints
gosh.
found at the scene matched to Speck. 2 days later, Speck was identified by a drifter where he and Speck were drinking on the evening of July 15th.
That's crazy. Like, smart on her to hide under a bed, because that's the only reason she's still alive.
Mm-hmm. He phoned police after he recognized the sketch of the murderer in the evening paper. Speck then attempted suicide in his hotel room, and the hotel desk clerk phoned the emergency room around midnight. Speck was taken to Cook County Hospital on July 17th. At the hospital, Speck was recognized by Dr. Leroy Smith, who had read about the quote-unquote "Born to Raise Hell" tattoo in a newspaper story. The police were called and Speck was arrested. Concerns over the recent Miranda case that had vacated convictions of a number of criminals meant Speck was not even questioned for 3 weeks after his arrest.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. It's a long time.
Mm-hmm. While awaiting trial, Speck participated in twice-weekly sessions with a part-time Cook County jail psychiatrist. The day before Speck was transferred to Peoria, and again, for people who are wondering where Peoria is in regards to Chicago, it's pretty far. I think like it's maybe 2.5 hour drive.
Man, that's like small in Texas.
Yeah.
That's like normal.
And it's a very boring drive. I mean, Illinois, as much as I love to make fun of Illinois, very boring state outside of like the Chicagoland area and maybe like up north, closer to Wisconsin.
Let me tell you, from here to El Paso, it's 9 hours. El Paso's on like mountain time. It's an hour behind, even though it's still in Texas. And it is the most boring drive for 9 freaking hours. Like, there's nothing. It's just land.
So he was transferred to Peoria to stand trial. The psychiatrist prepared a discharge summary with depression, anxiety, guilt, and shame among Speck's emotions, but also a deep love for his family. It went on to note an obsessive-compulsive personality and a quote-unquote Madonna prostitute towards women. He maintained Speck viewed women as saintly until he felt betrayed by a woman for some reason, after which hostility developed. So maybe he had a girlfriend or he was involved with a woman and she broke his heart.
So he killed a whole bunch.
It could be. I mean,
man,
if you remember from the Ted Bundy episode, although Ted Bundy had a bunch of psychological and mental illnesses, I mean, he seemed like he targeted his victims who looked very similar, had a lot of similar attributes to a woman that he was in love with.
I wonder if the woman that Richard Speck was in love with was a nurse.
Possibly. I don't know. I don't know anything about this woman.
Yeah. It just seems like, he broke into like a nursing school and killed a whole bunch of them. It's kind of, but like Ted Bundy in the sorority house,
Mm-hmm. He also diagnosed Speck with organic brain syndrome resulting from the cerebral injuries suffered earlier in Speck's life. And he stated he was competent to stand trial, but was insane at the time of the crime due to the effects of alcohol and drug use on his organic brain syndrome.
Oh my God.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Like, you're not crazy. You're only crazy when you drink and do drugs. I would say his criminal record tells us that's a lie because how many times he got arrested.
Speck later claimed he had no recollection of the murders, but he had confessed to the crime to Dr. Leroy Smith. But Smith didn't testify as he said the confession was made while Speck was sedated. Speck's trial began on April 3rd, 1967 in Peoria, Illinois. In court, Speck was positively identified by the sole surviving nurse when she was asked to identify the killer. She rose from her seat in the witness box, walked directly in front of Speck and pointed her finger at him, nearly touching him, and said, "This is the man." On April 15th, after 49 minutes of deliberation, the jury found Speck guilty and recommended the death penalty. On June 5th, a judge sentenced Speck to death in the electrical chair, but granted an immediate stay pending automatic appeal. The Illinois Supreme Court subsequently upheld his conviction and death sentence on November 22nd, 1968. On June 28th, happy anniversary, 1971, the U.S. Supreme Court upheld Speck's conviction, but reversed his death sentence because more than 250 potential jurors were unconstitutionally excluded from his jury because of their conscientious religious beliefs against capital punishment.
Wow.
On November 21st, 1972, Speck was resentenced from 400 to 1,200 years. He was denied parole in 7 minutes at his first parole hearing on September 15th, 1976.
Why is he even getting parole? What? Like, why are we even considering parole, though? Like, murder.
Yeah, he's clearly not beneficial.
You're not going to rehabilitate him.
No.
Like, that blows my mind.
He had 42 arrests in just Dallas. And you're just like, yeah, I mean, he could be rehabilitated.
I mean, I know he murdered people, but that was just because of the drugs and alcohol. As long as he doesn't do that again, we're good, right? No.
Yeah, just send him to rehab. He's good.
At least it was only 7 minutes, but still, like, why are you even considering it ever?
Yeah. The justice system is very strange.
Stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I'm all for life in prison versus the death penalty just because the cost of it alone. And especially, you know, these people you feel like almost get off easy because they can't sit for their crimes. But to give him the option of parole as like a serial killer, it blows my mind. Like, what were we doing? Yeah. Then again, we had $10 fine. So. This case, I swear.
It's so funny learning about like the value of money from like 50 years ago, 60 years ago. A $10 fine, I think, would probably be maybe like $100 now.
Or more. I mean, like, what could you get for $10? Most things are like $20 now.
Yeah. On December 5th, 1991, Richard Speck died of a heart attack.
No parole for him.
No.
Oh
All right, so let's move on to our last serial killer. Now, when I was doing my research, normally for like the last few episodes, we kind of had like a theme of the type of serial killers that we were covering. And when I picked the 3 that we were talking about today, I was like, I don't have any clue on what kind of similarities any of these guys have besides being crazy. and the fact that they're serial killers. Because the son of Sam's name is David Berkowitz.
Yeah.
But I learned that he was actually born with the name Richard.
This is the Richard episode, guys.
Yes.
If you know any Richards, keep your eyes out. It's a popular name, apparently.
Richard, if their name is Richard and they're a Sagittarius,
walk away. Don't do it. Don't do it.
All right. And yeah, and the son of Sam is also very fascinating because he's also a crazy guy too.
Super freaking crazy. I remember doing research on him in school and I was just like, wow, like there's not many people like that. Oh, hopefully.
No. And I think I saw a commercial. I don't remember what channel it's supposed to be on, but Donnie Wahlberg, Mark Wahlberg's brother, the guy that was in New Kids on the Block, I think is coming out with a true crime series, television series. And one of the episodes is actually going to be on the Son of Sam. If I remember what channel and when it's supposed to air, I will definitely let everybody know. I saw a commercial about it once, but I don't remember.
I think I did too. It might be on that like ID network with all the like crime shows. Yeah. I thought for a second you were gonna say he was gonna play Son of Sam in like a movie or something. I was like, well, kinda. I can see that.
Donnie Wahlberg loves himself some true crime, so.
Hey, don't we all though?
I love it. So the Son of Sam is a serial killer who pled guilty to 8 separate shooting attacks that began in New York City during the summer of 1976. Son of Sam was born Richard David Falco on June 1st, 1953 in Brooklyn, New York. Days after David was born, or Richard, he was given away by his mother. He was adopted by Pearl and Nathan Berkowitz of the Bronx, where they reversed his first and middle names and gave them their surnames. So that's why he is known as David Richard Berkowitz, not Richard David Berkowitz.
Those poor people, they adopted a psycho.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to adopt a baby, being all great people and all that, getting a baby out of the system, and he's nuts.
Mm-hmm. What are the chances?
Poor people.
Berkowitz's childhood was somewhat troubled, although he had an above-average intelligence. He lost interest in learning at an early age and became infatuated with petty larceny and starting fires. I would be so frustrated as parents if
for real
my child was setting fires.
I wonder, I mean, obviously there's not too much on it, but I wonder how they were with him. Like, I wonder if they were a factor, if it was just psychological from the beginning for him. It was just like how he was born.
Maybe. Neighbors and relatives would recall Berkowitz as difficult, spoiled, and a bully. Now, maybe he was bullied as a kid, because I have done training with my job where a lot of kids who were bullied previously end up becoming a bully, and it's like a vicious cycle.
Yeah, that makes sense, because they kind of like swing the opposite way. They like want to punish people for what they had to go through.
Like an eye for an eye type mentality.
Right. Which isn't a good one, guys. Don't have that.
Yeah. His parents consulted a psychologist due to his misconduct, but his misbehavior never resulted in a legal intervention or serious mention in his school records. Berkowitz's adoptive mother died of breast cancer when he was just 14 years old, and his home life became strained because he did not like his father's second wife.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay. A little bit from home then.
Yeah, now we're getting on to something.
Yeah.
In 1971, at the age of 17, Berkowitz joined the Army and served the U.S. and South Korea. After an honorable discharge in 1974, he located his birth mother. After his mother disclosed the details of his birth, he was greatly disturbed and distraught by the array of reluctant father figures. A forensic anthropologist described Berkowitz's discovery of his adoption and birth details as the primary crisis of his life.
Okay.
This is said to be a revelation that shattered his sense of identity. His communications with his birth mother later lapsed.
Wow. I mean,
yeah.
I know that's hard to be told that you've been adopted, like to wonder about your birth parents and stuff. But I mean, if you had a good mom out of the adoption, obviously he had a strained relationship with dad, but you know, you should be thankful that you at least have that. You have one stable parent.
Yeah, and it's not like adoptive parents want to tell their kids, like, yeah, you were adopted.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why people tell them early and why people wait.
Yeah.
Like, it just depends on the parents, really, and when they want to say it. And it's not going to be easy no matter what age the kid is. But I guess it's just like helping them understand that, you know, it's not because they weren't wanted necessarily. I mean, maybe that's why the birth mom gave him up. She didn't want him. But a lot of times I feel like it's out of necessity that they do it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of kids are placed for adoption because the birth parents or the birth mother just didn't feel like they could raise a child comfortably or be nurturing enough.
Give them a chance.
Yeah. So, I mean, placing a child up for adoption is not all bad. It's not like you're not wanted. It's not like you're this terrible child. You know, there's so many different reasons, good and bad, why kids are placed for adoption.
Very true. And, you know, you just got to be thankful that your birth mom did that instead of just doing what some people do, like throw babies in dumpsters and stuff. It's horrifying when they could. I know that the adoption agencies and stuff are overrun. There's just more kids than there are people adopting, and the process is long and it's expensive, but you know, just to throw the kid away, it's horrible, horrifying.
On July 29th, 1976, Berkowitz began his killings, where he started with two teenage girls, Jody Valenti and Donna Lauria, in the Bronx. The two were sitting in Valenti's car in front of Lauria's home when Berkowitz shot at them, killing Lauria and injuring Valenti. Valenti survived her injuries but said she did not recognize the shooter. A few months later, Berkowitz targeted a couple in a parked car where he fired at them, resulting in a massive injury to the man's skull. That November, Berkowitz also shot at two teen girls walking home together and left one paraplegic.
Wow.
Yeah. Police around this time had yet to put these shooting incidents together to realize that they were related. In January 1977, Berkowitz attacked another couple in a parked car. He approached Christine Freund and her fiancé. Berkowitz shot twice, striking Freund's head, where he later proved to be fatal because Berkowitz used the same .44 caliber gun in all of his shootings. The police were on his trail, initially referring to him as the .44 caliber killer. That March, Berkowitz murdered college student Virginia Voskirchian as she was walking home from class. The next month, Berkowitz claimed another couple, Valentina Serrani and Alexander Usau, in their car, but at this time, he left a letter addressed to NYPD Captain Joseph Borelli, calling himself the son of Sam for the first time.
Yes, I remember learning that. Gave himself his own nickname.
Throughout his murderous rampage, Berkowitz left numerous letters near his victims' bodies, taunting the police and eluded their capture. As a result, the media coverage of his crimes was widespread, and Berkowitz relished in the spotlight. Of course, because that's what they love to do.
That's why he gave himself a nickname. Like, that's what he wanted.
And, I mean, I don't know how the media can't cover that.
I get it. I mean, to an extent, like you see the school shootings and stuff, and it's all about the shooter and why he did it and his back life, his story, the manifestos, all that stuff. And you're like, there's these victims and their family that kind of deserve it more than him.
Yeah.
Especially with the copycat effect. You're just kind of letting people know how to do it.
It would just be better if the media would cover more of the victims and say, hey, I mean, there could be a serial killer. There's someone killing all these people, and we don't know why.
Just like the facts. We don't need to know all of it, or that could be like after the fact, but not while they're doing like before they're caught, because that's what they're enjoying. They want that fame. So you're just playing into their hands at that point, and then they kill more to see themselves more. Like this stupid circle.
On May 30th, 1977, Daily News columnist received a handwritten letter from someone who claimed to be the .44 caliber killer. On the reverse of the envelope, neatly printed in 4 precisely centered lines, read the words blood and family, darkness and death, absolute depravity. 40, and then it ended with 44. Underneath the Son of Sam was a logo or a sketch that combined several symbols. Maybe kind of like a cipher.
Right. A little bit of Zodiac in there.
Yeah.
I feel like the Zodiac kind of inspired quite a few different serial killers.
Yeah, he definitely, in my opinion, set the framework for several serial killers on how to toy with the media and how to toy with the police.
Right.
On July 31st, 1977, Berkowitz shot Stacy Moskowitz and Bobby Volante. Moskowitz died, and Violante was blinded in one eye and lost most of the vision in the other from his injuries. At the scene of the Moskowitz-Violante shootings, a witness saw a man getting away in a car that had a parking ticket on it. Only a handful of tickets were given out that day, and one of them was for Berkowitz. Was it a $10 ticket?
Right. 10. No, 15 this time.
On August 10, 1977, authorities arrested David Berkowitz. According to the New York Times, Berkowitz said to the police, well, you've got me, when he was taken into custody. Yeah, very no remorse, like Richard Speck. Yeah. Or no, Richard Ramirez. I'm sorry. Richard Ramirez is the other one who's like, whatever.
Just kill me. It's fine.
Yeah. Upon searching his apartment, investigators found satanic graffiti on the walls. They also found diaries that he kept since he was 21, 3 stenographer's notebooks, nearly all full, where Berkowitz meticulously noted hundreds of arsons that he claimed to have set throughout NYC. Some sources believe that his number may be over 1,400. Wow.
That's a lot.
Oh my God. I wonder how big some of these fires were if he set over almost 1,500 fires.
Yeah, like that's insane. And how many he did, did he set a few a night or was it spread out more? We just don't know. That's a lot.
On August 11th, 1977, Berkowitz was interrogated for about 30 minutes. He quickly confessed to the shootings and expressed interest in pleading guilty. During questioning, Berkowitz claimed that his neighbor's dog was one of the reasons that he killed. Stated that the dog demanded blood of the pretty young girls. The dog.
Yes, I remember. This is probably one of the first things I learned about Son of Sam. And I think what I had heard, or maybe, it's been so long, but was that he thought it was like the voice of God too, coming through the dog, telling him to do these things. I'm like, what? Wait, hold up.
The dog.
If you didn't think he was crazy before, you do now.
He added that the neighbor's black lab was possessed by an ancient demon and that it issued irresistible commands that Berkowitz must kill people.
Maybe it was that. Maybe it wasn't the voice of God. It was the demon. Because he was satanic type stuff.
However, 2 years later, when he was asked about this again, he said, it was just a silly hoax. Just kidding. The dog didn't actually tell me to kill people. Ha ha ha.
Don't believe you. You already lost that. We all think you're crazy, so.
3 separate mental health examinations determined that Berkowitz was competent to stand trial. Despite this, defense lawyers advised Berkowitz to enter a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity, but he denied. He appeared calm in court on May 8, 1978, as he pled guilty to all of the shootings. At his sentencing 2 weeks later, Berkowitz caused an uproar when he attempted to jump out of a window of a 7th floor courtroom. After he was restrained, he repeatedly chanted, "Stacy was a whore," and shouted, "I'll kill her again. I'd kill them all again." During another psychiatric evaluation, Berkowitz drew a sketch of a jailed man surrounded by numerous walls and wrote at the bottom, "I am not well at all."
We know.
I think we could figure that out from when you said the dog wanted you to kill people.
Or, I don't know, yelling Stacy's a whore. Do it again. Like, in a courtroom.
On June 12, 1978, Berkowitz was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison for each murder to be served consecutively. Despite prosecutors' objections, the term of Berkowitz's guilty plea made him eligible for parole in 25 years.
Here we go.
So a little bit of recent news, which I don't remember hearing this at all, but this is probably because 2020 is so fucked up to begin with.
True.
His last parole hearing was in May of 2020.
What? I haven't heard that either.
Super recent, considering we're in June. Although June is almost ending, but super recent.
Super. Like, that's crazy. I guess they're not going to put in the news every time somebody has a parole hearing, but like a well-known serial killer, I don't know. I feel like that would make news.
You would think that it would be like very 2020 to just like flash on the news, like, "Oh, True. Here you go, guys. Son of Sam. Here's his.
He might get out.
Watch out."
Let's why parole? He is nuts. His neighbor's dog was telling him to kill people. He does not ever deserve parole. Okay? Oh. Why are we even trying? I don't get it.
I don't either. So in 1987, Berkowitz became an evangelical Christian in prison. He says he is no longer to be referred to as the Son of Sam, but the Son of Hope instead.
Oh, thank you.
While in prison, Berkowitz began to claim that he joined a satanic cult in the spring of 1975. In 1993, Berkowitz made these claims known when he announced to the press that he had only killed 3 of the Son of Sam victims, alluding that there were other shooters and other shootings. However, due to a lack of finding, the investigation was eventually suspended but remains open. So on that note, I think we will end our serial killer mini-series and we will move on to something else that is just as interesting as serial killers. And if you know what I'm talking about and if you can figure it out, definitely let me know. Cause
maybe comment on the YouTube video and see if you can figure it out.
Yes, because I have something very interesting planned. I don't know how many episodes it's going to be, but I think you guys will definitely like it just as much as you liked the serial killer miniseries. I had a lot of fun researching these crazy guys, but I assure you, it only gets crazier from here. It just gets serial killers.
Yes, I'm excited for it all. Sad to end the killing season, but we've gone over a lot of serial killers, so it's been awesome.
Well, thank you, Haley, for joining me today. So before you go, why don't you let everybody know where our listeners can find you? Besides being with me on the True Crime and Chill podcast, she also hosts the One for the Girls podcast. Yeah. So listen out for those. Also, very interesting. You learn a lot. I know you guys are doing like a beauty mini-series at the moment.
Yeah. We're recording episode 4 today, so it's pretty awesome. And skincare, we did face makeup, like foundation and stuff. Eye makeup last time, and then you have to wait and see what this episode is. But these mini-series are really fun, so I'm very happy to have them on both of these shows. But people can find me on Twitter at CSI Haley.
Awesome. And you can find me on Twitter at MoneybagsGab. Probably currently crying about the fact that my gym is closed when I was getting really excited about it. But, oh well.
Yeah.
I'll make do.
Right.
All right. Thank you guys for listening. I hope you have a great day. And probably by the time this episode is uploaded, I hope you guys have an awesome 4th of July.
Yes.
Bye, guys.
Bye.